सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। हरि ओम। Today is supposed to be a very good day, a turning point for all the Yuva Kendra members. It was originally the thought of Sri Pujya Gurudev that in Yuva Kendra, where the motto is harnessing the youth potential through dynamic spirituality. So people do come here for various kinds of activities, starting from the study groups and various seva programs. It is believed that Gurudev said that unless you are on a talking platform, if you have to talk for 15 to 20 minutes, you have to prepare for at least 1 to 2 hours. Sincere preparation. And in that preparation gets streamlined our thought flow, our thought process on that particular subject. Once streamlining the thought flow and thought process on a theme becomes a practice, any situation, any place, any environment, to use that method of streamlining one's mind directly into that particular topic becomes easy. So from today till the 25th, 4 days, we have 15 Yuva Kendra members who will be speaking on Bhaja Govindam. I invoke Pujya Gurudev's, Pujya Guruji's and Great Lord's blessing on each one of you to do your best. As they say, if everything comes out good, it was their effort. If it did not come out good, probably I lacked in training them. So you can blame it on me later. The first one of the speakers would be Hemalata Talluri. So I invite her on the stage. All the best.
Bhaja Govindam. Bhaja Govindam is one of the most extremely important works of Adi Shankara. Bhaja Govindam, also called Mohamudgara, is addressed to common man as an instruction to help them walk the path straight to their goals. This is a textbook of advice and not a book of disputation. In Bhaja Govindam, we meet with the teacher who is softly advising his beloved disciples. Once in Benares, as Shankara was going along with his 14 disciples, he overheard a pandit repeating to himself grammar rules. Overhearing this, Adi Shankara burst forth into writing Bhajagovindam. Bhajagovindam, Bhajagovindam, Govindam Bhajamudamate, Samprapte Sannitihe Kale, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dugrum Karane. O fool, when the appointed time comes, grammar rules surely will not save you. So seek Govind. Knowledge of grammar is no doubt necessary, but it is only the means to an end. Grammar is useful to understand the Shastras, but to waste our entire life not worshipping the Lord is condemned here. There is a similar situation in Chandogya Upanishad, where Narada approaches Sanat Kumara, humbly begging for initiation into the great knowledge. The teacher rightly asks, "Tell me all that you already know so that I may instruct you on what you do not know." Narada thereupon gives an endless and brilliant list of science that he had already mastered, from astrology and astronomy to literature and art and dance and music, all the varied sciences, etc. At which Sanat Kumara says, "These are all mere names. The infinite Brahma has to be realized. It exceeds all these sciences." When death comes to erase you out of the existence in this manifested world, of what use is your science to you? Some ignorant people think that by merely remembering the God at this time of death, they will attain moksha. So they try to postpone Vedanta to the later stages. If you start learning at that age, when do you intend to implement it? Moreover, at that age, one doesn't have the energy and body wouldn't cooperate. So Shankara stresses the importance of worship by saying Bhajagovinda. Bhaja means worship by means of body, mind and intellect. Worship through body is called seva or service. Worship through mind is called puja, and worship through intellect is called Atma Pratishta. There are 9 types of worship. Listening to the glory of the Lord is Shravanam. Singing the glory of the beloved of your heart is Kirtanam. Constantly thinking about his nature and beauty is Smaranam. Adoring the feet of the Lord in spirit of self-obliteration is Padasevanam. With the help of selected mantras and sacred Vedic hymns, employing the necessary things prescribed for worshipping the Lord is Archanam. To pay obeisance to the Lord is Vandanam. Serving the Lord is Dasyam. To invoke the Lord affectionately and to discuss with him as a friend is Sakyam. And last but not least, to offer oneself in total self-surrendering to the Lord as a humble gift at his altar is Atmanivedanam. Govinda can be understood in the following four ways. He who finds or knows the earth, meaning one who has realized the substratum upon which the world play is going on. He who is the lord of the cattle, meaning the very life-giving factor behind all animal passions and the very essence behind the living kingdom. He who confers speech, the very power because of which all living creatures through the medium of speech convey knowledge mutually to each other. And fourth, he who is only through the Veda text, meaning the very supreme reality in the great statements, Mahavakyas. In short, Bhaja Govindam means seek your identity with Govinda, the Supreme, and do not waste your time in trivial things. Going to the second stanza. Moda jahihi danagam trishnam, kurusam buddhim manasi vitrishnam, yallabase nija karmopatam, vittam tena vinodaya chittam, bhaja govindam, govindam bhaja mudamate. O fool, give up the thirst to possess wealth. Create in your mind, devoid of passions, thoughts of reality. With whatever you get as a reward of the past, entertain your mind and be content. Today in the society, people define success in terms of amount of wealth one earns and the degree of luxurious life they lead. Desire for possessing, acquiring, and enjoying is the only force that takes man out of his inner balance. By doing so, man gets himself involved in the sorrows of samsara, although he has endless inner peace. Muda means one who makes the same mistake again and again, expecting a different result each time. Wealth in itself is innocent. Veda is not against wealth. It is not said here, renounce wealth, but it is only the unstoppable thirst, the trishna for wealth, that it is to be given up. The objects outside are not to be condemned, but the man's relationship with them has to be intelligent. Cleanse the mind of its lust for objects, greed for possessions, and apply the same mind in the fields of contemplation upon the real, the eternal. If possessions are to be cared for, if wealth is not to be acquired, how are we to live? A practical man can ask this question. The answer lies in defining what necessity is and what luxury is, and drawing the line between the two. Necessity is which you cannot live without or which is hard to live. Anything else is luxury. The borderline varies based on the factors like one's occupation, place of living, etc. For example, having a functional car is a necessity, but making sure that it is a BMW or Mercedes is a luxury. Shankara indicates how we must live in the world. His advice to us is to live with joy, in contentment and satisfaction with what we would get as a result of our actions. In other words, earn honestly, give some back to the society, and the rest spend on your life's necessities and towards the family. Man seeks satisfaction in life, but wealth can purchase for us only sense gratification. Desire for wealth degrades man. Like Swami Chinmayananda says, it is all very strange, the money psychology. When you have not got any, you will pant to get some. When you get some, you grow jealous of others who have more and feel conceited among those who has less. Attachment towards wealth brings endless worries. There is strain in acquiring and securing. There is pain when one comes to lose something he already has. In Kathopanishad, the young boy Nachiketa, already knowing these facts, simply denies all the boons for sense objects given by the Lord of Death and only asks for Atma Vidya. But we have to live in life only our senses of attachment, and with this renunciation comes the true enjoyment of worlds outside. This same message is conveyed in Ishavyasha Upanishad as renounce and enjoy, covet not others' wealth. Let us pray to God to keep us all within this path laid by Adi Shankaracharya.
My name is Hemalata Chavali, and I'm here to talk about shlokas number or stanzas number 3 and 4. Nari stanabhara nabhidesam društva magah mohavesam etan mamsava adivikaram manasi vichintaya varam varam. Like I said, this is the third sloka of Bhaj Govindam. First I'm going to tell the word-to-word meaning, and then I'll go into the summary of the sloka. Nari stanabhara nabhidesam. Nari means a lady or a woman. Stanabhara nabhidesam. Here Shankaracharya talks about the physical beauty and the bodily curves of a woman. Društva. Društva means having seen. Ma, do not. Gaha, fall prey. Having seen the bodily physical beauty of a woman, do not fall as a prey. Mohavesham, meaning delusion. Etat, all the above said, like the physical beauty of a lady or a woman. All this. Mamsava meaning flesh and the body, the flesh and the fat. Adi, etc. Vikaram meaning modification. It's nothing but a form of the flesh and fat, all this physical beauty. Manasi, meaning mind. Vichintaya, think well. Varam, again and again. In the previous shloka, Adi Shankaracharya advises us to give up the desire of attaining more wealth. And in this shloka, he advises about giving up the desire or lust for women, to enjoy women. And that's what he says in the first line of the shloka, Nari stanabhara nabhidesham društva magha mohavesham. All living creatures have two irresistible urges. One is to possess more wealth, and the next one is to enjoy women or the natural attraction towards the opposite gender. Well, biologically, nature has made man and woman, and there is a natural tendency for the opposite. There's a natural tendency or attraction towards the opposite gender, and there is nothing wrong about it. However, this desire or this urge or this attraction towards the opposite gender needs to be controlled, it needs to be disciplined, it needs to be purified, and it needs to be sublimated. There's a whole process. And this process can be achieved only by human beings through an intelligent intellect. And when I say human beings, why I say human beings is that animals cannot control their natural desires or natural urges or for carnal pleasures. So it's only the human beings who have this greatest advantage to control their carnal pleasures. So having had that advantage, he or she should curb their natural urges and control that and redivert them. And what I mean by redivert is like you redivert all that energy, all that desire, all that urge into such a way that you apply that for a more something nobler or a divine cause. And this is not, and Shankaracharya says that this is not an easy thing to do or possess. It needs a lot of practice. Varam, repeat again and again, it needs a lot of practice. And it can be achieved only through a trained intellect, mind, and body. In the third line of the shloka, he says, Etan mamsava adivikaram. All this beauty that the eye perceives is it's just nothing but fat, flesh, and skin. So what we think is as, oh, she's beautiful or oh, he's handsome is nothing but they say the beauty is skin deep. When you really think about it, underneath the skin, it's all flesh and fat. So when you get that mental image in front of you, the mind tries to retreat from this disgusting ugliness of the body. So what Shankaracharya tries to say is like rise above all these desires to attain more money, to attain, to enjoy women, and we need the mind needs to raise above all this, and it needs a lot of practice. So he also says that money and women in themselves are not a threat to man, but it is our false imaginations that we give them and strive for them that leads to misery. Hence he says a lot of practice, use all your energy and all your desire, all that desire and urge to a more nobler cause. And hence he says, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja. Next, fourth shloka. Nalini dalagata jalamati taralam tadva jivita matishaya chapalam vidhi vyadhi abhimana grastam lokam shokahatam cha samastam. This is the fourth shloka of Bhaja Govindam. And like again, I'll explain the word to word meaning and then go into the summary. Nalini, meaning lotus flower. Dalagata. Dalagata means the petal, the lotus petal. Jalam, water. Ati taralam. Ati meaning extremely. Taralam is unstable or fickle. The lotus, the water droplet on a lotus petal is very unstable. Tadvat, similarly. Jivitam, life. Atishaya chapalam is also extremely unstable. Vidhi, know, understand this. Vyadhi means diseases. Abhimana grastam, caught in egoistic diseases. And I'll explain more about that in the later shloka. Lokam, world. Shokahatam samastam, the whole world is filled with full of pain and miseries. In this sloka, Shankaracharya helps us to realize how uncertain and how unstable our whole life and existence is. And he compares it with a water droplet on a lotus petal. We all know how unstable a droplet would behave when it is on a lotus leaf. If you blow air into it, it falls apart, and that's how unstable it is. Similarly, he says, our life, our whole existence is so uncertain because we don't know what's going to happen the next moment, when we're going to die, what's going to happen. So life is so uncertain. Jivitam atishaya chapalam. And even during such uncertain existence, it is consumed or caught in the different modes of illnesses, like physical illness, like this body can get physically sick, like ill and diseases, and emotional disturbances. We have like day-to-day miseries. Somebody's boss is not being good to him, and somebody don't get a great raise or paycheck, and somebody's children are not listening to their words. So we have like day-to-day miseries. So physically we are not happy, emotionally we're not happy. The whole world is full of pain and miseries. So he makes what the point that he's trying to give us is, first, jivitam atishaya chapalam, life is very uncertain. And second, lokam shokahasam cha samastam, this whole world is full of sorrow and miseries. So when we know that the life is uncertain and the whole world is full of pain and miseries, what do? What do you want to do? He says that there's no time for anyone to waste. You have to thrive. You have to strive right now to realize the supreme reality. Hence, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja. Seek Govindam.
Hariom. Sorry, I have a bad throat, so bear with me. Before we go into all the details, Sorry, my name is Jai Bharat, and I'm a member of the Yuva Kendra here. Before we go into the details of this text, I'd like to give a small introduction so we know the perspective in which the slokas should be taken. The text, though we call it Bhajagovindam, it is actually called Moha Mudgara. Moha is basically delusion. Delusion, as defined in English dictionary, is false belief. So the belief is that which is false. And the Mudgara is actually meaning hammer, Hatoda as we call in Hindi. So with that, whatever these slokas are given, it's a nice hammer to hammer yourself and your delusions. So mostly from the time we are born till we die, we just keep acting and acting and acting. Obviously, act we must, because that is the expression of life. And somehow in these actions we suddenly, I don't know how we fell, but we fell into this delusion of trying to seek happiness and peace through these actions. If you see this realm of this whole world, we basically know that it is impermanent. Everything is changing. Only change is permanent. But still we somehow want to seek happiness and also permanent happiness in this realm. Via actions, relations, objects, everything, whatever is there. And we don't stop and think, we just act. Just assuming somehow, someday, I'll be happy. It's like that Swamiji gives example. Bug zapper is there and all these bugs are like, wow, I need to run into that, and they just don't think, they just run. Of course, those are bugs, but we are human beings, right? We should be intelligent. We should be able to think and then act. Of course, it is not possible to always do that, but at least on the major things, when we sit back at the end of the day, analyze what we did, why we did, that is at least what is required. Anyway, so the important thing is to pause and think about all of these slokas which are prescribed, so that the delusions are taken away. But the interesting point is the actions themselves, whatever they specified, wealth you can acquire. Even women, it is a natural tendency, you can have it. But what is the mistake is that we are trying to seek happiness or permanent happiness through these objects. That is the delusion. And with contemplation on all of these slokas, we can hopefully develop some sort of an introvertedness. Introvertedness and vairagya come from that understanding we have. Even Sri Ramji went through this. He through his vast travels, he suddenly found, it is all impermanent. This world is impermanent and there is no happiness in all of this. And so he sat down and he didn't want to work. And then the teaching of Vasishta Mahamuni came in, and then he was given that great Yoga Vasishta, as it is called. And then he came and then he ruled and lived the way he lived, which we all know. So anyway, so that is the brief introduction as to what the delusion is, and then why these slokas are given, how we have to apply. So in the previous slokas, we have covered some three famous delusions: wealth, women, and also extreme uncertainty of life. We know it is uncertain, we know we will die, but somehow we don't want to agree to it. Let us see the next two slokas. Sloka number 5. I think most of you don't have the book, so I'll just read it. Yavadvittoparjana saktaha stavan nija parivaro raktaha paschad jivati jar jar dehe vartam kopina prichati gehe. Basically, yavad vittoparjana saktaha. As long as you have that ability to earn, stavan nija parivaro raktaha. Only till then, your friends, your family, your relations, all of them cling to you. Paschat jivati jar jar dehe. Jar jar dehe means when your body becomes infirm in the future, whenever it is, and you lose your ability to earn and save, then Vartam kopina prichati gehe. No one will even ask you, Are, how are you? No one will ask. So the interesting thing is, yeah, the ability to earn and save and all of this is very nice. You need to earn and you need to save and you need to distribute to everybody. But what is it that is the problem? What is the delusion here? So is that Shankaracharya saying don't earn? No, that is not what he is saying. What he is trying to indicate is that, okay, before we go into that, let us see. I'll just try to show you some examples. There is oil in the Middle East, and US and all these countries are rushing there. Once the oil is gone, why will they go there? They don't even care about that country. In a similar way, when you have that earning capacities, people will come to you, cling to you, ask for money, whatever it is they ask. And once that is gone, who will care about us? Think about it. Same thing, humans and animals and all of these people, right? As long as there is water and food in a region, you stay there. And once that is exhausted, you go to some other place which there is a resource and then tap into that. So the point being, that is a natural thing of the world. There is nothing to say that, once my money is gone, that person has left me. No, that is not the right thing to think about. The point is that when you, as a person, you are trying to expect some sort of permanency through that relationship, you are trying to expect some sort of comfort through that relationship. Obviously, all of these things are nice feeders of the ego. Ego is the one who acts in the present and tries to go back in the past, dig into the past, and then project into the future, all acting in the present. So it is the ego who is not content, and he wants to feed on all of this. So the delusion is to expect permanency and comfort through all of these relations we have. So that is to be understood. In US, basically, if you are a bachelor, many of you are bachelors, if you don't have a job or anything after you graduate, people will think of you as a loser. Like, what is this fellow? He doesn't even have a job. They might not even talk to you. During the period of layoffs in 2000, 2001, I've heard people say that, Arey, my wife is not giving me respect. I don't have a job. You know? So in the same way, once you become old, you see, even on Coed, there is an old age home. Why are there so many old age homes here? This is just the example. It is bound to happen. Once you become old, you don't have that ability to earn and save. It is for sure that people will not even ask how you are. So before that, try to get rid of these delusions. So how do you get rid of these delusions? Right? And you will ask, okay, how do you get rid of these delusions? So the interesting thing is, you're acting every day. You have a lot of thoughts which go on. So the most important thing is to keenly observe whatever you're acting. And at the end of the day, do contemplate on it. Why did I do this action? What am I getting out of it? Did I just act? Or did I really seek some sort of happiness, comfort, and all of that through this? So through that analysis, you will basically get an insight, some sort of a clarity through which you will start acting. And sometimes some people say, Arey, if I'm gone, who will take care of my family? As if you are taking care of your family. You are just facilitating that thing. Luckily, you have some money and they are around you. Somehow you tend to think, I'm taking care of my family, as if you are making all the air, oxygen, everything here. It is foolish. That's all. So, hopefully when we contemplate on these things, we will somehow get that understanding and then develop some vairagya and then focus on that which is important. To know not something, just to know our true nature, not some supreme reality somewhere. Don't think about all that. Just think about inquiry, who you are, that's all. Okay? We'll see the next sloka. Yavat pavano nivasati dehe तावत् रिच्यति कुशलं गेहे गतवति वायो देहापायो भार्या बिभ्यति तस्मिन् काये. Okay. Yavat pavano nivasati dehe. As long as there is prana or the pavan, the airs functioning in the body, so long you are called alive, really speaking. Tavat richati kushalam gehe. Meaning, till then, till you are alive, people will ask you, hi, how are you doing? All of that they will ask. But once you are dead, once these pranas are left, will someone ask, how are you? That fellow will be a madcap. So the important point is, Gatavati vayo deha payo. Once this thing is gone, the pranas are gone, bharya bhibyati tasmin kaye. Bharya, close one, wife, you can consider as all the close relatives. Bhibyati tasmin kaye. They themselves fear this body. Actually, Gurudev somewhere writes this dead human body as a toxic waste. I like toxic waste because usually everything just disintegrates, but human body need to be burnt and it can have so many weird poisonous things. So that is a toxic waste. So the point Shankara is trying to focus here is not on prana or body or whatever. All he's saying is the body-centric delusions. We'll go into a couple of details. I have a lot of examples for us. Are the ones which he's trying to use his Mudgara against. So, see, here in US we have so many gymnasiums as we call it, right? Everyone wants perfect body, even I also want perfect body, just like many people here, right? People want to build muscles and they have all these nice, like they want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, or some women want to be so skinny that you will say, is this a person or is going to disappear? Right? I mean, you find so many people like that. So this is all extreme. I mean, it's somehow I feel it is maniacal. You have so many proliferation of plastic surgeons, one of the most lucrative profession in US, right? Everyone wants that job, this job, facelift, oh my God, liposuctions, whatever, there are so many, they want to fix everything in their body as if everything is wrong, right? I mean, you guys should agree. Oh, nail salons. Every corner there is a nail salon. These are dead pieces, right? It is dead. And you want to decorate it, grow it, do that, do this, whatever it is very foolish actually. So all of these, the things, what we are trying to say is, these are excesses. Again, fashion industry, torn jeans. I also have a pair, by the way. Torn jeans, but they have torn naturally, not bought. Anyway, so makeups, perfume, so many things we use. Yes, it is okay, important to use a deodorant when you smell, fine. But it is all excesses, you know what I'm talking, so I won't go into any details. The important thing to know is, Gurudev calls them very beautifully, abominable intellectual stupidities. Abominable intellectual stupidities. Anyway, so the point is to take care of the body, yes, wash it, clothe it, exercise very much, do all of this. But know when they are in excess. Once they become excessive, you have to know what it is feeding. It is feeding your image. It is feeding your sense of self, which is the ego. That is what is feeding. That is what is making you run for all of this. Right. So again, the point I want to bring about is contemplate on these facts. Observing keenly what your actions are, what your thoughts are. See whether you are making thoughtful choices, why you are making, what is the intent of whatever actions you are performing, and hopefully try to get to that source out of which these actions are arising. So that is what I had to say. I'll give a small conclusion also. So you will say, okay, Jaybar told so many things, I don't know what he said. Just give me one small take home. You will. So the small take home is interestingly the name of the text itself, Bhaja Govindam. Bhaja, actually, as Swamiji told us, is service. Bhaja Sevayam. Govindam. Govindam. Someone today morning sent me this interesting thing. It means Indriyeshu Vindati iti Govindam. Indriyeshu, that which illumines the Indriyas, that is Govindam. So that illumining factor. Okay. So you say service and Govindam. Okay. What do you mean? I mean, what do you mean perform service to what? Initially, it can start very simply. It can start just by having whatever nice altar you have, whatever high ideal you have, you offer all actions there. If it is thoughts, offer that also. If it is bad thoughts, very well, offer that also. Offer whatever you have, offer it there. That high altar. Not for yourself or for your family or whatever. To some higher altar. Even in Chinmaya Mission Pledge we have, service to our country is a service to the Lord of Lords. And devotion to the people is a devotion to the Supreme Self. What is they are talking about? They are talking the same thing. Serve everything. Every action is a service to everything. And that is your highest altar, whatever it is. So hopefully while doing this service, eventually we might develop an understanding, and hopefully we will realize that everything just arises just like steam arising from water, hot water, and then plays and then condenses back into the same water. That's all. And hopefully we will all get there. And only take home is Bhaja Govindam. Hari Om.
Hari Om everybody. My name is Sashidhar Chavali, and I'm going to talk about shloka number 7 and 8 of Bhaja Govindam today. I will start with the 7th shloka of Bhaja Govindam. Please repeat after me. Balastava krida saktaha Tarunastava taruni saktaha Vruddhastava chinta saktaha Parame brahmani kopi na saktaha. As I said, this is the 7th shloka of Bhaja Govindam, and I think this actually aptly applies to all of us here, because Shankaracharya ji actually speaks about all the 3 stages in our life cycle: the childhood, the teenage, and then the old age. So the first line, which says Balastava Krida Saktaha, which means when you are a child, all you are interested in is to play. All the time you want to do is play. Probably most of us have kids at home, and we have very good experience with them. Whenever you tell them to go and study, they'll be always like, let me play for 5 more minutes and then I'll go back and study. Even though they really go to school, relatively speaking, they are more interested towards playing in the school rather than actually studying in the school. I said relatively. They do study too, but they are more interested towards playing in the school. They have got good programs here. They are more interested towards that. There is nothing wrong with kids. Kids are kids. They are more interested towards play. So it is nothing wrong with the kids. They are just kids and behaving as kids. And the second line here says, Tarunastava taruni saktaha, which means in your teenage, you are more interested towards the opposite gender and towards your passions. Probably at least some of us have teenagers at home, or at least you've seen teenagers, so you can tell that out of your experience. Most of the teenagers are very, very interested in the brand names. They wanted a brand name shirt, they wanted a brand name car to drive in, and they wanted brand name goggles, brand name shoes, everything brand name. Brand name is very important. Why is it so important to them? Because they think that brand name helps them a lot in impressing the opposite gender. So the brand name is very, very important to them. That's the main reason brand name is important to them. And this is a little bit true with the girls, teenage girls. You just can't simply get them away from the mirror. Even though they're in the even though they're in the middle of a party or something like that, they'll just open their pouch and take out that small mirror and apply the makeup and all. Why is that again? The same thing. They want to impress the opposite gender. Again, as I'm stressing it, it is nothing wrong with trying to impress the opposite gender or anything. But as long as it is properly channelized, there is nothing wrong. It should not take your mind away from the real important thing of achieving the supreme self. Of course, this comes in the later part of the sloka. Going back to the third line of the sloka, which says, Vruddhastava chinta saktaha. Okay. This will talk about the old age people, if at all I can call them so, because as you grow older, you'll be like saying, I'm still 18 at heart. I'm not old. So at this stage, all you are worrying about is the anxieties. How is my portfolio doing? How is my retirement plan doing? How are my investments doing? Is it right time to invest more or get out of investments? This is all you worry about. And the other thing you worry about is the people whom you think are actually dependent on you. They are not really dependent on you, as my friend Jai Bharat said, but you think that they are all actually dependent on you. So you worry about their well-being. What are they going to do if I die today? So I want more insurance and all that stuff. Those are the things you are worried about. So in all the three stages of our lives, we never really think about one thing which is really important, which is realizing the supreme reality, supreme Parabrahman. That is what the fourth line says. Parame Brahmani kopina saktaha. But I'll come back to that fourth line again. I want to quote this example. Swamiji, when he was talking in Bhajagovindan lectures, he quoted this example, and I just can't get it out of my head somehow. The attitudes of kids, teenagers, and the old age people can actually put in three simple words. When you are a kid, probably Swamiji already realized what I'm talking about. When you are a kid, kids are always interested in how that thing works. So it is like, tell me why that happens, tell me why this happens, tell me everything. So mom and dad are really fed up with that. Then they'll buy a book called Tell Me Why Everything, and they'll just give it to the kid. That solves the problem. So that's the attitude of the kid, tell me why. And the same three words can be rephrased, and that can be the attitude of the teenagers. Teenagers, they know everything. You can't teach them anything, nothing is wrong with them, everything is wrong with you if you are trying to teach them anything. So they are like, why tell me? If you are trying to tell me something, something is wrong with you, not with me. So that's their attitude. Again, when you grow old, the same three words again, rephrased. Tell, why me? All the problems in the world are just with you. Everyone else is happy, everything is wrong with you. You are the only one person who is suffering. My colleague is getting 200K and I'm just getting 199. See how underpaid I am. That's how they worry. These are the three stages of life and three words that explains our attitudes towards life. In these three stages, not even a single time we are really worried about the real important thing, which is realizing the supreme self within you. Our lives actually starts as a child. We like to play when you're a child. The teenager, when you are more interested towards your passions and trying to impress your other gender. And when you are old, you are trying to take care of the family or the so-called family around you. But you will never try to give even a single moment to realize the supreme self. These extreme attachments towards the worldly things which are around you should be given up intelligently. Given up intelligently, I stress this intelligently part because, for example, if you are a gruhastva and one fine day you want to give up all the attachments, so tomorrow morning you'll wake up and you'll just go away from your family. No, that is not the case. Because you are a grihastha, you have certain duties to perform, and you have to perform no matter what. Because it is your prarabdha, you have to do that. And since you are a grihastha, you can't just run away from all the worldly things around you. But whereas a monk can probably do that, he can do that. What is the basic difference between the animals and human beings? Animals live by their instincts, and we as human beings live by our intelligence. We have our intelligence to think what is right for us, what is dangerous for us, and what is really foolish and what is correct. So we use that ability to think and take a right decision. We have our own inclinations, we have our own temptations, we have our own tendencies. And using those tendencies in a right manner, if we try really hard, probably we can achieve the highest perfection and the self-realization. And that is what the fourth line says. Parame brahmani kopina saktaha. No one is really interested in the real, trying to achieve the supreme self at all in all the three stages of our life. So try to achieve that. And going to the 8th shloka, please repeat after me. Kate kanta kaste putraha samsaro yamativa vichitraha kasya tvam kaha kuta ayataha tatvam chintaya tadiha bhrataha. In this shloka, Shankaracharya is asking, or he looks like he's asking us a couple of questions, which are not really questions, but they are really obstructions in our life to achieve the Supreme Self. This, the first line which says, Kate kantaha kaste putraha. The first part of the first line, Kate kantaha. What is it? It looks like a simple question. Kate kantaha meaning, who is your wife? Or what is your wife? It doesn't really mean that you can't simply say that my wife is an architect or my wife is an interior designer and be done with it. No, that is not the answer for it. It is much deeper than that. Let's go deeper into it. Who is your wife? Your wife is a daughter of a father before you even actually met her. And after you meet her and get married, she is your wife. And if your prarabdha karma is to pass away before her, probably she would be widow of you. So the same one woman has three different stages. She is the daughter of a father, your wife, and your widow. So in a sense, the relationship between a husband and wife can be explained as a relationship between two travelers on a pilgrimage. They start at a destination, they meet somewhere in between, they travel along as just any other good-hearted travelers. They would be helping each other throughout the travel. And when their destination comes, meaning in the sense of husband and wife here, when the death comes, they'll depart. Even though you love your wife a lot, when the time comes, you have to go your own way. When death comes, it'll take its own course from there. You can't, even though you love them so much, you can't be together at that time. So that's the meaning of who is your wife. And the next part, which says, Kaste putraha. Who is your son? Again, this is not a simple question. Who is your son, really? Your son is your son only after your wife gives birth to that son. Until then, your son is called as a fetus. And before that, it's an embryo. And before that, it's a seed in your loins, which has actually the product of the food what you eat. And where did the food you eat come from? It comes from the earth. So here, I just want to brush up your mathematical skills here. We long time back learned a property called transitive property, which states that if A is equal to B and B is equal to C, then A is equal to C. So using the same logic here and applying it, what is your son? Pile of mud? Is it? Yeah. Or the other way to say it is your sun is a different, one of the forms of different manifestations of the sun, of the earth. The other manifestations being the fetus, the food, the embryo, all those things. And applying the same logic to the question which is in the line 3, I'll come back to the line 2, kasyatvam, which says, who are you? Use the same logic and apply it. Who are you? You are a son of a father too, or a daughter of a father too. So, you are a pile of earth too. And what is your wife? Same logic, pile of earth too. So, a pile of earth loving other pile of earth. Does it really make any sense? Isn't it strange? This is how powerful the Maya is. This is the delusion. Okay, going back to the second line. Samsaroyama tiva vichitraha, which means to an thoughtless person, this life is nothing but attachments and fascination towards the worldly things. But an intelligent person actually questions upon several questions like the questions in the third line. Kasyatvam kuta ayataha, kasyatvam, who are you, to whom do I actually belong, from where did I actually come from, and where do I go next? An intelligent person will ask himself these following questions and try to get an answer for that. And also, what should be my attitude towards the worldly things around me? Attached detachment, probably, because you are here, you have to do it, it is your responsibility, just do it. If, in one sense, people may think that Shankaracharya ji is opposing all these family bonds and all this stuff. It is absolutely false. He is not opposing the family bonds. Family bonds are actually very, very, very powerful, and it helps the person, at least to some extent, to get rid of this egocentric selfishness. But, for example, here, instead of me, 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 and me, because of these family bonds, you will be me and my family at least. So, the family bonds can only take you so far. You have to get out of that family bonds and look at a broader picture, which is around you. That is how you have to think and grow from what you are. Okay. In the last line, Shankaracharya says, Tattvam chintaya tadiha brataha. Brataha meaning brother. He is advising you all this stuff as an elder brother to a younger brother who is actually wandering away in a wrong path. He is trying to get us back into the right path and concentrating on realizing the Supreme Self instead of getting attached to the worldly things. I know since past 15 minutes probably I've been talking about detachment and detached attachment, self-realization, realizing the Supreme Self, all these things, but it is easier said than done. But if you don't even start trying to achieve there, it can never be done. And it is never too late to start trying to achieve the Supreme Self. Thank you for listening. Hari Om.
these slokas. If you have other questions, Swamiji is there offline. You can ask. Can someone ask easy
Yeah, you should know everything, so you should not ask any questions.
Anybody can ask questions related to these 8 shlokas.
So no question on wealth, women, nothing? Okay?
Transitive property either. Exactly, there
That
you
is
go.
Maya. You can ask.
So no questions?
In the phase of life that you are in now, specifically, how does it apply to you? That is to Shashi.
As I said in my shloka, probably detached attachment. Do love your wife, do love your parents, do earn money, do save, but try to distribute at least part of it, if not all of it. I'm talking about the savings part. Probably that is how we have to try to inculcate those habits for us. That's what I think.
I can add a little more. Sorry. Usually up till 15 years or so. Usually up to like 15 years or so, you don't know what's happening around. Your parents will say, do that, do this, and you just do, right? After that, you start to think, what's happening? Why am I going to school, college, or whatever? So from 15 to around 30 years, you are most confused. After that, you are fully worried, like this is, right? So at least to me, personally, the way it applies is, this is the time I am also most confused about so many things I am doing and everything that is happening. So to me, that is the most important thing, that it gives me some sort of a perspective and a picture how everything is working, where I come from, and something to actually do with my life. That is the thing I have. After that, if I'm confused like everyone else, I'm okay. But at least during this time, that's how it helps me. Actually, offering and all of that, what we are actually referring to is most of the actions we feel as if I am doing it. So mechanically, if we start offering to something else, it can be whatever it is, saying, okay, it is doing it. You see that actually in teamwork, when you work at any company, you see that the team functions when each and every individual does their role very well. And the output is so much more. Like you see in the mission also, right? So many different people doing so many different things. But everyone has a special itch. I have itch to do some website work and I do that. right? Likewise, so many people have so many pressures, something they want to do. But the thing is, if you do it and you feel as if you're doing for your own self, that is actually enhancing and feeding the ego. But if you work in such platforms, or forget this platform, anywhere, you have that virtual platform, if I can call it, where you can offer everything, including thoughts, bad thoughts, everything there. Just a sense of, you can't really offer anything to that virtual platform. So that is the way it will help. It will stop feeding the ego, yet actions happen, and calm. Right, virtual offering, and sense of ego or doership reduces, and stillness comes, and hopefully we will see what we need to see.
They did an absolutely great job. I am happy and proud. Now, as they had done their homework in giving these lectures, probably you also have to do your homework in asking them questions. The reason being, whatever questions that you are asking is not in their syllabus, though it is related to it. So it helps to bring that mind into that particular topic from a different perspective. It's not to nail them with some questions, but so that we can provide a platform that the mind can think in a newer direction, a newer angle to perceive. And all of you have done a real good job today. I hope you are all relieved. My 15 minutes is done. So, all the best for the rest of you all who are coming up here. And we'll meet tomorrow at 7:30. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi